They thought she was just a prisoner, a child tucked behind palace walls, far from the battlefield, far from the executions, far from the fury tearing England apart. But Princess Elizabeth Stuart was never just a child in the eyes of the people fighting over the throne. She was a royal bloodline, a political prize, and for a brief moment, a possible future of the kingdom itself. Born in 1635, Elizabeth was the second daughter of King Charles I and Queen Henrietta Maria. When the English Civil War broke out, Parliament took her and her brother into custody, turning royal children into hostages of war. She was educated carefully, praised for her intelligence, her languages, her devotion, and the quiet dignity she showed, even while living under control she never asked for. But the real horror came at the end. In January 1649, Elizabeth was allowed one final visit with her father before his execution. He told her not to grieve, to stay faithful, and to remember his words. She later wrote down the meeting, capturing the fear in his voice and the devastation in hers. It was not just a farewell. It was the collapse of a family in real time. And then, after her father was dead, Parliament still would not let her go. In 1650, Elizabeth was moved to Carisbrooke Castle on the Isle of Wight, even though she was already weak and unwell. On the journey, she caught a chill that developed into pneumonia. At just 14 years old, she died in the same castle where her father had once been imprisoned. That should have been the end of her story. It wasn't. She was buried with almost no ceremony in Newport, her grave marked only with the initials E.S. For years, she remained a forgotten royal child, lying in silence while England moved on. But centuries later, her memory returned as a symbol of pity, loyalty, and lost innocence. A young princess who never ruled, never rebelled, never escaped the war around her, yet still became one of its most haunting victims. And today, every time people study the fall of the Stuarts, the English Civil War, or the fragile path that led to the modern British monarchy, Elizabeth is still there, in the shadows, not as a queen, not as a conqueror, but as the child who watched a kingdom break apart and never lived long enough to see it heal.